What's good, you guys? Teddy Striker here. And after UFC 307, where Alex Pereira yet again finished one of his opponents, I started to ask myself this question: is Alex Pereira the hardest pound for pound hitter in UFC history? And that's an interesting question, I believe. In my opinion, I think it's a pretty interesting question because it just seems like this guy is able to put a beating on guys, and he's able to hit guys and they react in a way that they don't usually react to. Like a guy like Yuri Prochazka, for example, he was getting blasted by Alexander Rakic with massive overhands, and Rakic is not a small light heavyweight. He's a pretty big guy, and he was winging haymakers. We've seen Gloria Teixeira blast Yuri Prochazka with massive shots, massive punches for 5 rounds, but Yuri Prochazka was still conscious, and then Yuri gets in there with Alex Pereira, and it's not even a big shot in the first fight. And Pereira is not in a regular, bladed or narrow stance. He's kind of in a square stance, and he's not really rotating his hips over to generate that type of power. His feet are planted on the floor. He's not pivoting his foot, which are techniques used to generate power. He's just kind of rolling his shoulder. There's your right hook, and then he gets squared up, and he throws his left hook with no hip generation whatsoever, and he's able to drop Yuri Prochazka to the ground and finish him off after that. And then in the rematch, we see Yuri Prochazka get dropped by a left hook while Alex Pereira is moving backwards. Again, he's not really generating that much torque with his hips. He's not really rotating his or pivoting on his foot. He's just stepping backwards and throwing that hook, and it drops Yuri Prochazka, bounces his head off the canvas, and then the round ends, and then he just finishes him with a head kick. And then we look at a guy like Sean Strickland, for example, and Sean Strickland didn't get hit too much by a guy like Jared Cannonier, but again, he didn't get hit too much by Alex Pereira up until the finishing blow. But with Cannonier, Jared Cannonier was hitting him with some overhands. Yes, he was missing a lot, but there was times where he was connecting with some massive overhands when Sean Strickland had his back against the octagon, and Cannonier was moving forward into the punch, whereas Pereira, he hit him when he was moving backwards. And Dricus du Plessis, he was hitting Sean Strickland with some head kicks. He was running at him and rushing him and clipping him with some big overhands, but he wasn't hurting him. And Alex Pereira, he hits you once, clean on the chin, and it's like you just get shut off, and Sean Strickland got shut off. It seemed like he was in a place where time didn't exist, and then Pereira just hit him with a few follow-up shots and finished the fight just like that. And in his last fight versus Khalil Roundtree, he didn't really use his left hook. In my opinion, he kind of won that fight with his jab, his right hands, and his kicks, basically. And he was shutting Khalil Roundtree's right eye with his jab, and that was a stiff, accurate jab. And apparently, during the fight, the referee, Mark Goddard, he had this to say about Alex Pereira's power.
I was in the octagon after the fight, and Mark Goddard came up to me, and he said, I've been doing this for 20 years. The way he hits people, he goes, the sound is like nothing I've ever heard before. He said, it's ungodly. Really? That's what he kept saying. He says, it's ungodly.
Wow. And Pereira can do so much damage, not just with his hands, but with his kicks as well. He was able to take away Israel Adesanya's movement in both of their MMA fights. In the first fight, he was blasting for a lot of hard leg kicks. He was striking the kicks as well. And then in the rematch, he was a lot more effective with his leg kicks, and he was shutting Israel Adesanya's legs down a lot earlier. And now when I think about other fighters in the UFC who could potentially be the hardest pound for pound hitters, I can think of guys like, obviously he's not in the UFC anymore, but Francis Ngannou was regarded as the heaviest puncher because he had the hardest recorded punch. And a few months back, I made a video talking about how the UFC's punch machine didn't seem like it was that accurate to me because of the massive gap between Francis Ngannou's punches and Pereira and Joe Pyfer's punches were, and also the fact that Eddie Hall, when he did the punch machine, he destroyed a record, and he hit significantly harder than Tom Aspinall. But then when they did it side by side, it was in fact a lot closer. So I feel like a more accurate way to actually record all their punches would be to just get them all in a room and just have them hit the same machine with the same glove with the same technique. But getting back to my point, I feel like, yeah, Francis Ngannou was definitely one of the hardest pound for pound hitters because he's a heavyweight and he was dropping a lot of people. But to be honest, yes, he was knocking a lot of people out, but some of those fighters were maybe a bit past their prime and they had been in a lot of wars and got KO'd a bunch of times, like guys like Alistair Overeem, guys like Stipe Miocic, Junior Dos Santos. Those guys were a bit passive, whereas Pereira, he's putting people away with short punches. Francis Ngannou, sometimes he did have big one-up on those shots, but Pereira has short punches and he's moving backwards as well, and he's putting people out. And also, he's able to hurt you with more diverse attacks. He's able to hurt you badly with his leg kicks, with his jabs, with his short right hands, short left hooks, everything. And Ngannou, he was hurting you a lot with his left hooks, his massive right overhands. But I'm starting to feel like Pereira might just have a different type of power, where it's like it's just something about like the way his frame is, the bone density. Maybe it's just there's something about him that just seems like it's hurting people in a different kind of way. And then when I think about other pound for pound hardest hitters in the UFC, I think of maybe a guy like Justin Gaethje, because he was also able to do some serious damage to people with his leg kicks. He was also able to do some massive damage with his hands. Even Khabib talked about it.
You know, this guy, he hit like truck, you know, like nobody hit harder than Justin Gaethje. His kick, his punch, his left hook, right uppercut, you know, it's like.
But yeah, it just seems to me like Pereira is one of those guys who might go down as one of the hardest pound for pound hitters in the UFC. I don't know if he is. I think right now in the UFC, with the current fighters, I think that he is. I think you put him in heavyweight, I think he'll put those guys out. But yeah, I even Gloria Teixeira talked about how he's hitting harder than some heavyweights. But right now, currently in the UFC, I think he is pound for pound the hardest hitter all around. His punches, his kicks, everything. But all-time history, I don't know. I think I'd put him up there, maybe in the top 3 with one of the hardest hitters all around. With guys like Francis Ngannou and Justin Gaethje and maybe a Benson Henderson and maybe like a guy like Anthony Rumble Johnson, some of these guys, just pound for pound the hardest hitters. I'd even put a guy like maybe even Davison Figueiredo up there. But yeah, I think his power is very, very special. It's a different thing, and I think that's part of what makes him unique. But obviously, he is a very, very technical striker. He's probably the best UFC striker in the UFC right now. But let me know what you guys think about Alex Pereira's power. Do you think he is the hardest hitter in the UFC right now? And also, do you think that he's the all-time hardest hitter in UFC history? But thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. God bless. And make sure you tune in tomorrow, because I'm going to be talking about Belal Muhammad and the state of the welterweight division. But yeah, thank you guys for watching.